So today I'm going to refill the bookcase. And I have made a rule for myself that on the bottom shelf will only be quilt books, knitting books, and then the magazines and some other things that I want to keep, whether they be quilting, knitting, crochet, embroidery, whatever type of craft that is. But I am limiting myself to this space for those books, which probably means that some things may have to go. Plus, I don't have to fill it. I can leave space for some future additions. I have not really purchased any new quilt or knitting books in a while, and I'm sure there's plenty of great new ones out there. So I'm going to start bringing them over and going through them because some of them just really need to go. And the first one that I pulled was the Bella Bella book, which comes with a pattern. And I also have the full-size paper foundation piecing for that. So this was a project that I wanted to do. I believe I wanted to do the cover quilt. So this is going to go into the pile of quilt projects. I was going to say unfinished, but it's really not unfinished if I haven't started it, right? But it's a quilt project I want to do. And if it's on my shelf, I'm probably going to forget about it. I mean, I had forgotten about it until I moved my bookcase. So I'm going to move this over to a separate section, and then I'm going to start bringing over piles of books. I'm ready to start. And I probably should kind of categorize them a little bit first. They also need just a little bit of a dusting. So I have a number of books that I really have enjoyed in the past. I've made things from them, and I would like to keep them as more reference material. I am the type of quilter, and crafter, who doesn't follow directions very well. I'll start out and then I'll be like, oh, I think I can do it differently. Or what if I did this instead? Which is a topic unto itself. So for right now, I'm going to make a stack of books that I like. This one I used in my shop, and I believe we did a whole series of quilts with pinwheels. I love pinwheels. That's a keeper. And of course, occasionally there's a knitting book thrown in there. Just going to set that aside because that goes on a different shelf. Wow, this is a classic. Your first quilt book, Where It Should Be, Carol Doak. That's an old one. I'm not so sure that I need to keep this one. This, I think I might pass on to somebody who is new to quilting. I think this was the second quilt book that I ever purchased. I do know that I have their first book, Quilts, 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 and that is what started me, or one of the things that started me on my quilt journey many, many years ago. Now, a few of these books have seen better days. They must have been on a shelf where there wasn't enough support to keep them fully upright. This looks like it has some good reference material, so I'm going to keep that. Well, I grew up with the Muppets, so I'm going to keep that one just for sentimental reasons. Oh, this looks like a great reference book. 501 Rotary Cut quilt project in there from a quilt show we did many years ago. Excellent reference book. Here it is. That first book I started out with, Quilts, Quilts, Quilts. I made, at least a few blocks using this book. And another reference book with, again, 501. That must be like the secret number. This one includes applique as well. Hang on to that. All right, time to put them on the shelf. I do have a small stack that I'm giving away, so that is fantastic. And I think that means that there will be a little room left on the shelf. These I think I'm going to lay down for now until I get a bookend. All right, so definitely have room and a whole stack of things that are leaving. Oh, I did find a few patterns, and those will go into magazine holders on the top. And also a couple of books that will be harder to see by the spine. Those will go in the magazine holders as well. But now I have to tackle the knitting books. I don't really need a how-to knit book, But just flipping through this one, it has some really excellent references. So I think I'm going to keep it, add it right to my shelf. Let me go ahead and bring over the stack of knitting books. Okay. I'm starting off with two of my favorite books. And those are the Nikki Epstein Knitting Over the Edge and Knitting on the Edge. So these are for sure keepers. Another great reference book is the Vogue Knitting 25 Years of Articles, Techniques, and Expert Advice. Definitely a keeper. Another great collection of books, book 1, 2, and 3 from Sally Melville, The Knit Stitch, The Purl Stitch, and Color. I have a number of other XRX books, including Think Outside the Socks, which I believe was from a contest. It was. And let me see if I can find them quickly here. Here we go. Flowers on Lattice. These beautiful little lacy anklets with these gorgeous little flowers were designed by one of my customers. So she was one of the winners for the contest. And it was very cool because she purchased the yarn from my shop. So I also got recognized as well, which was pretty cool. So cool book, lots of really fun sock patterns in there. Not that I'll be knitting socks anytime soon, but definitely want to keep that. Also want to keep Betsy Beads from Betsy Hirschberg. So I would love to combine more beading with knitting. So definitely going to hang on to that book. A number of magazines have worked their way in. This was a really fun little booklet, the Tech Square Afghan, which was sort of a block of the month. We did it in my shop as a block of the month, where each month you did one of the blocks, and they're all knitted and they go over different kinds of techniques. So from different knit stitches like cabling and different pattern stitches to different techniques like doing a mitered corner and fair isle. There's some dimensional stitching as well, color blocking, entrelac. It was very cool. We had a really good time. Did I finish that project myself? No. But definitely hanging on to that, but it's going to go into one of the magazine holders up here. Well, it's a Barbara Walker book, so definitely hanging on to that. Oh, love this book. I have knit a couple of things from here. It's just beautiful. Victorian Lace. Kind of going through all my XRX books first here, put them all together. Entree into Entrelac. Very cool. Gwen Bortner. Took her class at Stitches years ago. It was fabulous. Love Entrelac. See if I have any other XRX books here. Ah, yes. Ginger Luter's Module Magic also took her class. It was very cool. Very cool book on working with hand-dyed yarns. So I think that is it for my XRX books, but I still have quite a number of other books that I plan to keep. So there's our Barbara Walker. The Knitted Lace of Estonia. I love lace and I like knitting it, so definitely keeping that. Also keeping Maggie Knit's Irish collection. Love anything Ireland. And along that same token, Elspeth Levold, who does magnificent pieces too. Am I ever going to actually knit some of these things? Probably not, but I do really like them as reference and as ways to jumpstart my creativity. This was a lovely book. Kristen Rengren, Vintage Baby Knits. And also, this is by Joelle Hoverson, Last Minute Knitted Gifts. So both of those are great reference books to have. The classic, Stitch and Bitch. Knit One, Felt Two, probably a good reference book to have as well. So hang on to that one. Then I have several stitch books that I want to keep. The Knitter's Book of Finishing Techniques, always good to have that on hand. Kay Fassett, Knitting Library, all sorts of really fabulous inspiration in that book. The Knitter's Bible, I'm not even sure I've ever looked inside this, but again, gives lots of tips and tricks for things. I often use those when I'm writing a pattern to kind of see how they're phrasing things, make sure I'm not leaving anything out, get a little bit better understanding on how to present instruction. Knitting Tips and Trade Secrets, gotta have that. Finishing Techniques. Teach Yourself Visually, Knitting Design. Well, I'm not really sure how great this book is. A good reference book to have. hanging on to that. This shelf is getting full quickly, but that's okay. We only have a few more things left. So I have Knitters at Home. This looks like it is more for home decor items. Oh, and this is an XRX book. Well, we'll keep this one too. That's probably why I have it. For years, I was a vendor at Stitches, and so I'd often pick up whatever their latest book was. This is a book on color work, and so it applies to all different crafts. And for right now, I will probably put it down on the quilting stack, but we'll see. All right, last few things here. The Knitting Goddess. Instructions and stories. That might be kind of fun to look through. This was a bargain book somewhere. And the last, which I happen to have 2 copies of, is My Knitting Teacher. This is the book that I used when I was teaching people to knit. So I like having a couple of copies of this on hand. All right, just made it to the end of that shelf. Now it's time to go through those magazine files, organize them a little bit. Okay, so I know that this amount of magazine files fit across the top because I took them off that way. But I haven't really totally gone through all the things that are in there. I did go through some of it, and I did pull out a lot of magazines, and I had additional ones of these, and I pulled out many, many of those magazines as well. So, best way, dump out each one and go through. I think these are ones that somebody gave to me, and I think I can probably let them go. Although there is a sweater that I once knit from a Vogue in the 90s, and I would love to knit that sweater again. So I may have to set these aside and look through them. That is going to be a project for another day. All right, next bin. So this Vogue is their silver anniversary collector's issue. Definitely keeping that. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer knitting magazines that I'm going to keep into here. So these would be collector edition type things, or ones that are very special to me. And I know I have some more of those coming up. Of course, I'm a fan of the Harry Potter series, so this has some cool patterns in it. Just like to hang on to that. Well, only 2 magazines came out of that I wanted to keep, came from that one. Set that one aside. I might have a lot of room on the top here. That's pretty exciting. All right, let's see what's next. Yet another quilting pattern that I really wanted to do. I think these are beautiful, these placemats. These will need to go with Bella Bella. And it looks like I'm going to have a magazine folder that I can keep those in. So I'll move Bella Bella back into that. I'm getting rid of all my quilting magazines and a good number of my knitting magazines because I just don't really reference them. I tend to design my own things, or I will use the books that I have as reference. I am going to keep the spin-off magazine though, and I may have a couple of other spinning magazines. I'm not much of a spinner. I do have a spinning wheel, although the belt broke, dry rotted, and so I'm going to need to get that replaced, but I'm not in any rush because I'm probably not doing that anytime soon. So I'm going to hang on to that. I'm going to put that with the Harry Potter for right now. Oh, now this is really cute, and I think I'm going to hang on to that. This was a little supplement, I believe, from a larger magazine, and I really like this coverlet here. I'm going to keep that. This has a variety of different craft projects. I think I'll hang on to that. And I have 2 issues of Cast On. I used to subscribe to this, and I carried it in my shop. So I'm going to put all of those into one container. So let's see. So far, I have 3 containers that don't have a lot of things in them, but I think that might change. And I have a stack that needs to go into a container. Looks like I have a couple of magazines on storage and decorating. Hold on to those for a second, but might be letting them go. Great American Afghan, that goes along with the Tech Square Afghan. So those are going to go together in with some knitting things. This is the Knitters Magazine Special 100 issue. So that's going to go with my Vogue Silver Anniversary. So this is Knitters 104, and this is the dress that I designed, Cables and Camel. So definitely keeping those. And another magazine been emptied. But I'm getting quite a stack on the floor here, so I think I'm going to go ahead and put some of these things back together. Knitting, and well, crochet, that we'll put that all in the same thing, and spinning and everything. Okay, these can all go together. And I think for right now, I'm going to put them with the cast-ons. Although the cast-on, I think I might move to the special magazine section. And here are more cast-ons as we speak. So I have several issues of Threads magazine. So we're going to put that into a bin that will be for sewing related things, and my pajama things, stitch, fabric and thread. Yeah, we'll keep that in here with this one. Really not sure why I'm keeping this pattern. It is lovely. For now, I'll put it in with the quilting patterns. 2 more bins to go. Not sure I'm going to make anything from that. I'm going to let that go. Ooh, craft magazine. We'll keep that. That can go over here with the stitching. Here are 2 more quilts. They can go. So I have a couple of nice magazines like the Belle Noire, Somerset Studio. You know, these are just beautiful ones to look at. Expression, Cloth, Paper, Scissors, Paperworks. Paperworks might actually move to a different bin. And we'll see in the end, I might be able to condense some of these down because all of them so far have some room. Oh, this one looks like I don't even need to go through it. It is all piecework magazines. So this is very exciting. Just a few things that need to figure out where they're going to go. So I have some knitting things. These will go in here then. And I had one book that really was not knitting or quilting, and that was Paper Magic. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in with the Paperworks magazine. So the other things I have sort of lying around here are some storage and small room decorating. I think I'm just going to let these go. Yay me! Now, I'd like to say this is, you know, I'm done with the magazines, but I am sure that throughout my house, I have other bits, and just looking across the room, I realize that I have 2 more magazine rack holders that have stuff in them. So looks like I could go through those and maybe condense down even further. Let's put these on the shelf. So it looked like one of the magazine holders was actually a rogue one that didn't originally come from the bookshelf. So I just had to condense the papercraft with the sewing quilting things. And I may even move the papercraft things out of this room. And when I went over to the other magazine holders that I have across the room, one is full of quilt magazines that I'm probably not keeping, so I didn't need to bring them over. And the other one just had some reference materials for both knitting and quilting. So I have filed those appropriately. I'm pretty excited. Until, of course, I find more stuff, then we'll see.